All right, so I got Supermassive opened up by Valhalla. So basically this thing acts as somewhat of a fusion between a delay and a reverb. So if you've used their ValhallaDelay, which actually I'll just pull on real quick. I'm a huge fan of this one. It looks very similar. It doesn't have the warp mode on the actual delay, so that's different. And I kind of hear some of the shimmer colors. So shimmer is this reverb. So I kind of hear some of their shimmer in here too. So probably kind of a mixture of both working in here a little bit. But it's just interesting. I'm just kind of playing around with these delay and warp knobs and seeing what kind of result I can resample with the drums and maybe make some fills afterwards. So what I'm going to do is create a new track. Underneath the drums, we'll do input from the channel 1, record arm, and let's just start messing with it. Cool. So this went through a couple modes. Started with Gemini. I think I hit Sagittarius and then Andromeda. They all kind of just have a little bit of a different texture to them. So mess around. It's pretty cool sounding. So what I would do here is I'd probably just like drag this over here and extend it all the way. You can key map to the on and off switch. So what I do is Command K and then just map a keystroke. I'll do the key A to this one and the key A to this one. You want to do the same one to both and then turn one off. And as long as this thing's off, if this is on, it won't work. So make sure this key is off. You can also do that by pressing M, on and off. But now you can toggle between, so we can get like some cool fills and like mess around live by just hitting a key on our keyboard. And each one of these sections I use a different color, so we can just cut them up and check them out. Maybe even reverse them. So you get the idea. You can kind of mess around with that. I'm going to delete those for now. So just Command K again, then delete. And let's mess with this on an actual sort of texture, which is this robot. Cool, so we'll toss this on here. Let's see what kind of stuff we can get in here. Already sounded pretty cool. Let's try Lyra, we haven't done that one yet. And we'll keep the mix at 100 just so we can totally tell what the sounds or what the plugin's doing. So some pretty cool sounds in there. We could resample that and pull some stuff out definitely. But as far as this plugin goes, it's essentially like more of a delay now that I'm playing around with it more than a reverb. But it does have some cool textures and some cool presets. I'll show you some of the presets real quick. We'll just do like a vocal swelling quarters maybe. So some cool stuff you can get into here. Let's see what Just do AB. Yeah, so that one's not so intense of an effect, but you get the idea. And real quickly, let me just break down what everything's doing up here before we sign off on this one. So basically mix is obvious. It's how much of the effect is coming through versus the dry signal. So at 100%, you're going to get all of the, only the affected signal through. And then at 0%, you're going to get all of the dry signal through. So pretty standard on everything. And then width, I like playing with their width knobs a lot on their actual delay. And this is kind of the same thing here. If we listen back, it's actually easier. Let me just pull on like a Serum instance real quick. Cool. So now we have Serum and Supermassive. And I did that because Serum's like very mono off the bat on the init patch. So that's like straight down the middle. So if we hear Supermassive on top of that, 100% is going to give it like a huge width. And then if you put it down the middle, it's all down the center. So when you're doing sound design, this is really useful sometimes if you're doing like a layer on top of something and maybe it has a lot of information in the sides in the stereo field, but you only want to add some stuff to the middle or vice versa. You can come in here and set it to the middle or too wide, and you can go to -102, but basically it just kind of flips the stereo image. That's all it's doing. It's just keeping it wide, but reversing the stereo image. So that means what would be playing on the right would now be playing on the left, and vice versa. So that's what that does. This delay time is basically the amount of time between your note hit and when you hear that echo repeating. So like the time between all those different echoes going off. And I often use delays for sort of like vinyl type of sound. So if you hear like, so if you go if you increase the delay amount, it kind of sounds like something going down in pitch, versus if you go high delay amount to low, it'll sound like it's going really fast. So you can get some really cool like vinyl stuff that way too. And I think what makes this plugin unique is this warp. Let me just say real quick. Yeah, so I think it's just sort of like a knob that does the same thing over here, but just a little bit differently. Maybe they're like slightly lower of a scale for where it's sweeping. So it just allows you to kind of get some weird stuff if you're messing with both of them at the same time. And we can do that by our trusty LFO from Maxer Live, which I'll probably do an episode on this in the future. So pretty cool effect. Let's try some like a preset real quick. So yeah, and then just to run through these last few knobs. So feedback is the amount of echo you're gonna get. So if we were to just delete this, let's turn this to lower. So low feedback, you're gonna hear the echo die out really quickly, but if we crank it high, it's gonna like last way longer. Density is kind of interesting. The density of echoes when the feedback is turned up. So I think it just means the amount of sound it lets through on each echo. So if we turn this down, let's turn this up a little bit more. Now let's turn this up. So you can hear the sounds like a little bit thicker when the density's at a higher percentage. Very subtle there, but does make a difference. And then the mod rate, this is sort of like vibrato if I understand correctly. So if you, let's do like a low rate and a high depth. So depth is basically the level. So it's kind of like the mix for the modulation tab. So if we turn this up all the way, how to get some cool stuff there too. So yeah, it controls the delay modulation in hertz. So mess with that. It just kind of adds some extra color to your sounds that you might not have expected from a delay otherwise. And then EQ is fairly simple. This is just the high cut. So if you put this all the way up, it's going to let all the highs through. If you turn this down a little bit, you're going to hear it get a little darker. It's basically like acting as a filter, so you don't have like that super high end in the delay that you might not want in the delay, but maybe in the sound. So for example, in this sound, it's fairly simple tone, but if we turn it all the way up and crank this down, you're going to hear that top disappear a little bit. And when you add them together, so now the delay is much more separated from the original tone, so you get like cooler effect that way. So that's what the EQ is for. And then the low is doing the opposite. It's just rolling off the lows. And this is good sometimes because maybe you don't want like a super bassy or just some of that muddy region in the delay itself. So if we listen to this sound, dry versus wet. So you can hear it just kind of plays with the EQ of the delay's specific sound and allows you to craft it even more sharply and more precisely. So that's my breakdown of the Supermassive plugin from Valhalla. I have the link to the free download in my show notes at basecamppodcast.com, or you could just Google this. It's on their website for free. Pretty cool plugin. Definitely a good intro into like the delay that they have because I love it. And it's very similar, it's just kind of more stripped down. So go check that out. Hope you guys got something out of today's episode, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.